The galaxy had long been embroiled in war. It had been a time of endless conflict, where once powerful empires clashed relentlessly, and entire civilizations were torn apart. Species fought for dominance, for resources, for survival. The stars had burned brightly with the fire of battle, and the vastness of space echoed with the sounds of war. But after centuries of bloodshed, the final battle had come. The last few pockets of resistance had been crushed. The great galactic powers, weary from endless fighting, had finally come to the table. The Great Galactic Council, a conglomerate of the most powerful races in the universe, had declared the war over. A ceasefire was signed. Victory was proclaimed. The galaxy, now devoid of conflict, fell into a deep silence. For the first time, in what seemed like an eternity, peace had returned to the stars. It was a fragile peace, yes, but it was peace nonetheless. The war that had defined the lives of so many across the galaxy was over. Factions that had once been at each other's throats now began to rebuild, focused on recovery and diplomacy. The once imposing warships that had ruled the stars now gathered dust in the empty corners of space. It was a time of reflection, of quiet optimism, a time for the galaxy to heal. The leaders of the Galactic Council celebrated the end of the conflict with grand speeches. There was talk of rebuilding relationships, sharing technology, and working together to ensure that nothing like the devastating war would ever happen again. Old enemies shook hands, and alliances were forged anew. Every species believed that the worst was over, that the future held nothing but peace. Yet, in the midst of this quiet celebration, something unexpected began to stir in the galaxy, something no one could have predicted. As the galaxy's leaders basked in their new peace, a strange anomaly appeared on their scanners. At first, it was a mere blip, a small, seemingly inconsequential signal emerging from an unremarkable corner of space. But this signal was unlike any other. It was a distress signal, and it was coming from Earth. The Council, a body made up of the most advanced species in the galaxy, was baffled. Earth was a forgotten world, isolated from the rest of the galaxy for centuries. To many, it was little more than a distant memory, a backwater planet with no real technological or political significance. The war had never really touched Earth. It was considered weak, insignificant, and largely ignored by the galaxy's greater powers. How could Earth be sending a distress signal now, after all these years? And why now, when peace had finally been declared? The first response from the galactic leaders was one of disbelief. Some laughed at the very idea of Earth having anything worth fighting for. What could Earth possibly have to offer? After all, it had been centuries since anyone had heard anything from that distant, isolated world. It was easy for them to dismiss the message as a mistake, perhaps even a glitch in their systems. After all, who would listen to a planet that had been thought of as irrelevant for so long? But then, as they examined the signal more closely, they realized it wasn't just a plea for help. It was a challenge. It was a message that carried with it an unmistakable sense of urgency. Humanity is still here, the message seemed to say. The war may be over, but humanity is not done yet. The galaxy's leaders were divided. Some were skeptical, even angry. How dare Earth send such a message after being so silent for so long? Others, more curious, began to wonder, was this truly just a desperate cry from a forgotten world? Or was there something more beneath the surface, something more dangerous, more powerful? Despite their doubts, one thing was becoming clear. Earth had just made a statement, and this statement was not one they could ignore. Earth, once dismissed as weak, now had the galaxy's full attention. No one knew what this message meant yet, but one thing was certain. Humanity was not as helpless as it had once seemed. The suspense of the moment hung heavy in the air. The Great Galactic Council, so used to wielding power and control, now found themselves facing an unknown variable. What did Earth have that the rest of the galaxy didn't know about? Could this small, seemingly insignificant planet truly hold power that could disrupt the peace they had fought so hard to achieve? As whispers began to circulate and factions within the council began to debate, One thing remained certain: the peace that the galaxy had fought so hard for might not be as stable as they had believed. The signal from Earth was just the beginning, and no one knew how deep this new mystery would go. Suspense built across the galaxy as the once-forgotten planet now took center stage. It was the beginning of something no one could have predicted. The great galactic powers might have thought the war was over, but Earth's unexpected emergence was about to change everything. The galaxy, so sure of its peace, was about to face a new reality, one where humanity was no longer weak and forgotten, and no one knew just how far humanity would go to prove their strength. The fate of the galaxy, once thought settled, now seemed uncertain, and the galaxy's leaders had to wonder: had they truly seen the last of the war? Or was this just the beginning of something far bigger? The signal from Earth continued to echo through the galaxy. Some believed it was a bluff, nothing more than a last cry from a desperate species. But others weren't so sure. In the dark corners of space, whispers began to spread. Stories of ancient technology, of hidden fleets, and of experiments once buried under Earth's crust. No one had heard from humanity in a long time. But now, it seemed they had returned with purpose. On the surface, Earth still looked weak. The planet had no known colonies, no active war fleets, and had been silent for generations. Galactic databases showed nothing special. No recent trades, no diplomatic presence, no military activity. To the Council, Earth remained a mystery wrapped in old files and forgotten records. But then, something strange happened. A patrol ship belonging to the Dronary Empire picked up a new energy reading near the Sol system. It wasn't natural. It wasn't random. It was controlled, strong, calculated, and coming from deep space beyond Earth's orbit. The patrol ship moved in to investigate. What they found left them speechless. Floating in the darkness was a massive object, an ancient station, miles wide, completely hidden in deep space. It had no markings, no transmissions, and no signs of life. But it was running. Its power core was active. Its systems were functioning perfectly, like it had been waiting for a signal. The Dronary ship sent back data to the Council. Within hours, the entire Galactic Council was in emergency session. How had such a massive structure gone unnoticed for so long? How could a species like humanity, once thought primitive, have built such a thing? Theories started to form. Some believed it was a leftover relic from the early days of human expansion. Others thought it was a secret gift from another race. But a few began to whisper a different idea. Perhaps humanity had never been weak. Perhaps they had simply hidden their strength, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment, it seemed, had arrived. Back on Earth, something else was stirring. Old underground bunkers began to activate. Deep within the planet's forgotten military bases, ancient systems powered up. AI units, defense turrets, encrypted networks long silent now came online. Satellite grids reconnected. Something was being prepared, but no one knew what it was. The media across the galaxy picked up on the signal. News headlines screamed, "Earth awakens. Ancient power detected near human space. Who are the humans, really?" Fear began to spread, followed by curiosity. More ships were sent to observe Earth. Most kept their distance. But one small research vessel, a group of curious explorers, decided to get closer. What they found was shocking. A massive fleet, hidden behind the moon, had come online. It wasn't new. It was old. But it was advanced. More advanced than anything seen in recent galactic history. Ships that moved silently. Weapons that pulsed with unknown energy. The humans hadn't been sleeping. They had been preparing. In silence. In secret. The research team tried to send a message back, but before they could, their systems were jammed. A single message appeared on their screen. "Observation complete. Return to your council. Tell them, we remember." That message sent a chill through the entire galaxy. The council was now divided. Some wanted to send diplomats. Others wanted to strike first, fearing that humanity was planning an attack. But there was no response from Earth. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. Behind closed doors, panic began to grow. What else was hidden on that planet? What had humanity been building all these years? And why now, after the war was over, were they finally revealing themselves? Back on Earth, a tall man stood in a dark command room, surrounded by glowing screens and old symbols of Earth's forgotten nations. His voice was calm. They think we are weak. They always have. Let them keep thinking that, until it's too late. Outside, the stars shimmered. Humanity's hidden strength had just begun to surface. And the galaxy? It was watching closely, uncertain, unprepared, and afraid. Because if the stories were true, then peace was only temporary, and the real war was about to begin. The stars had seen many wars, but none like the one that was coming. Since the message from Earth and the strange activation of ancient stations, the galaxy had been holding its breath. Council meetings turned into arguments. Empires whispered of invasion. Smaller planets wondered if they should flee, hide, or beg the humans for protection. No one could predict what would happen next. But then, Earth moved. Not in words, not in open attack, but in presence. Across distant sectors, once dead communication satellites flickered back to life, broadcasting encrypted signals in long-forgotten Earth languages. Old listening posts, buried under dust and time, began tracking ship movements again. In deep space, ancient human scout drones reactivated, zipping silently between stars like ghosts. To the Council, it felt like Earth's shadow was spreading. A small convoy from the Tazari Republic decided to test the waters. They sent a diplomatic vessel toward the Sol system, hoping to open peaceful contact with the humans before anyone did something foolish. But the convoy never made it. It vanished just outside Neptune's orbit. No wreckage, no distress signal, just gone. Panic erupted in the Tazari Senate. They accused Earth of aggression. The humans, however, remained silent. No messages, no answers. Only one thing arrived days later: the diplomatic vessel, intact, parked outside the Tazari capital. Its crew unharmed, but shaken. When questioned, the Tazari captain could only say one thing: "We were boarded, not with weapons, with words. They showed us something, a recording, of what they could do, of what they will do if we don't listen." That frightened even the strongest empires. What could possibly be so powerful that it needed no threats, only a recording? The Krell Dominion, proud and ancient, laughed. They declared Earth a bluff and sent one of their elite battle cruisers to orbit the human homeworld. They'd wanted to show the galaxy there was nothing to fear, that Earth was just noise. The cruiser never returned. Instead, a video was sent to the entire galactic network. It showed the mighty Krell ship surrounded, completely paralyzed, by a fleet of human stealth vessels, ships that hadn't been seen until they were inches away. No shots fired, no violence, just power, pure, cold, controlled power. And the message that followed was clear. We offered peace once. We were ignored. We asked for unity. We were mocked. Now we rise, not for war, but to remind you who we are. The war was never over. You just never saw the end. For the first time in centuries, the Council was terrified, not of destruction, but of truth. Humanity had never been weak. They had been watching, listening, building. And now, they were no longer hiding. In the shadows of old satellites and under the ice of Jupiter's moons, something massive was waking up. Orbital rings, megastructures, armies of drones, and most terrifying of all, command ships that answered to no one but the ancient codes of Earth. Earth wasn't sending a warning. Earth was making a promise, and every star in the galaxy could feel it. The silence had ended. The storm was coming. The galaxy held its breath. In every corner of space, screens flashed red alerts. Defense systems powered up. Empires whispered. Council members argued in panic. No one had expected this, not from Earth. For centuries, humanity had been quiet, forgotten, small, weak. That's what everyone believed. But now they were rising like a storm that had been waiting too long to break. One by one, human ships appeared, not in fleets, but in places they had no right to be. Inside secure war zones, next to enemy capitals, even above council worlds. Each ship was cloaked in black armor, quiet as a shadow, and moved like it bent time itself. And not once did they fire. They simply appeared, watched, waited. It was not war. It was a message. We see you. We're everywhere, and we're ready. The council met in emergency session. The session hall buzzed with fear and confusion. The Tharn ambassador slammed her claws on the table. We should strike Earth now, before they launch a full assault. The Voklian elder hissed in disagreement. Strike. Do you not see? We don't know where to strike. They are inside our systems, hidden. We can't touch them. And then, the human spoke. A single transmission beamed directly into the council chamber from deep space. No face, no voice, just a calm, cold message written in perfect galactic standard. We waited, we watched, we hoped for peace. But while you celebrated your false victory, we prepared for what comes next. We do not want war, but we will not be underestimated again. Panic swept across the chamber, but one species, the youngest of all, stood and spoke with trembling courage. The Elari, known for peace, asked the question no one wanted to face. What do the humans want? That was the moment Earth revealed everything. In the center of every major galaxy hub, holograms appeared. Massive, detailed 3D projections of ancient Earth plans, blueprints of weapons, technologies, and machines never before seen by alien eyes. Orbital city ships the size of moons. Fusion drive colonies hidden in black holes. AI warlords with command codes that bypassed entire defense networks. These weren't dreams. They were real. And Earth had already built most of them. In silence. In shadow. But the final piece, that was about to awaken. From the far side of the galaxy, near the dying star of Velforn 9, the ground began to crack open. A planet once believed dead trembled. Then rose. A hidden Earth stronghold, camouflaged for over 1,000 years, emerged from the crust. Towering walls of metal and crystal, and above them, an enormous ship, larger than any dreadnought, a command ship once designed not for battle, but for judgment. Its name burned into every network. Valhalla Protocol activated. Earth's voice echoed once more across every system, every channel. This is not a war. This is the reset. Join us, or stand aside. Because if you try to stop what's coming, you will see what true strength means. The Council had a choice. Unite with Earth, or try to fight the storm. But deep down, everyone already knew. The war wasn't over. It had never ended. And now, it truly begins. The stars had never been so silent. The galaxy stood on the edge of something vast, something ancient, something unstoppable. At every outpost, in every fleet, and across every capital world, one word repeated again and again: humanity. They were no longer seen as weak, no longer forgotten, no longer dismissed. They had waited in the shadows of history, growing, learning, preparing. And now, they had stepped into the light, brighter and more terrifying than anything the galaxy had ever known. Above the ruined world of Velforn 9, Earth's command ship, the Valhalla, hovered like a god made of steel and fire. Its engines hummed with power no one could measure. The surface of the ship shimmered with living armor, adapting to every scan, every threat. Inside the command bridge, Commander Illyra, the voice of Earth, stood in silence. Around her, a dozen species sat, not as enemies, but as guests. As witnesses, a Voklian diplomat broke the silence. "Why now? Why reveal yourselves after so long?" Elira's voice was calm, but unshakable. "Because peace built on lies cannot last. Because you forgot us. Because the galaxy needs to remember what it means to earn peace." She turned to the star map, where threats still blinked: pirates, warlords, silent empires rebuilding for another war. "We do not come to conquer. We come to restore balance." Just then, across thousands of systems, Earth's fleets emerged in full. From behind moons, beneath oceans, inside artificial suns. Not just warships, but healers, builders, engineers. AI diplomats with entire languages built to resolve conflict without weapons. Human forces arrived in broken worlds, not with bombs, but with food, medicine, power, and hope. Yet in the shadows, those who refused to change still sharpened their blades. A final battle was coming, not of fire and metal, but of truth versus fear. The council, fractured but watching, made their decision. One by one, the ancient flags of war fell. Worlds that once fought for domination now turned to Earth, not to vow, but to walk alongside. And on Earth, the people watched the stars. The old ones remembered the silence. The young ones dreamed of new skies. And in the skies above, Valhalla sent its final message. We were never gone. We were becoming. And now, the future begins with all of us together. The stars blinked, the galaxy turned. And for the first time in countless ages, it was not afraid.